We've seen that Rust is getting popular, has amazing safety guarantees, and naturally produces fast code. But those are its strong points. And its biggest negative is the complexity of learning the language. It's a much more complex language and has a much higher learning curve than many new languages today. Basically, you have to figure out the borrow checkers rules to get your code to compile at all. And while the complex code is made simple looking by the automatic casting and traits like from and deref, that also means that what's actually going on is much harder than it looks. So, how hard is it to learn Rust? I've looked around industry blog posts and also used personal experience from myself and my friends to confirm those posts. The consensus is that any systems programmer will go through various stages while learning Rust. After 1 week, most C++ developers can contribute meaningfully in Rust, fixing bugs and adding features. It then takes about 2 to 3 months for most people to become more expert in Rust programming. This is pretty consistent across companies. Taylor Thomas from Azure says that once developers are over that initial curve, they are able to contribute code just as easily as with any other language. Ralph Squillis said that using Rust to build Kubernetes components was a wonderful experience compared to Go. Simon Heinrich says, if you can code in C++, we're confident that we will be able to teach you to code in Rust. And Drea Stoyan says that she did her first code release in Rust within a week of joining, despite not having used it before. But then it took her a few months to learn the quirks. Sarah Butcher says that she's a C++ developer and it took her a week to learn Rust. Finally, Nick Cameron has a repo on GitHub dedicated to teaching Rust to C++ programmers, and says both that Rust is a pretty intuitive language for C++ programmers, and that existing C++ programmers are an audience who are a natural target for Rust. He's not alone. There are many resources on the web for teaching Rust to C++ programmers, and several are quite good. Note that all those numbers are for C++ programmers, who basically always wrote the same code. They knew which variables owned which memory, they knew what their lifetimes were. They just need to learn how to inform the Rust compiler of those facts. If someone had only ever programmed in, say, JavaScript, then I assume the learning curve would be much harder for them. They'd still get there, but it wouldn't be only 1 week. Breaking news. In June, Google published the results of an extensive survey of their Rust developers. And Google alone has over 1,000 Rust programmers. Note that many of these programmers came from C++, but others from languages like Python and Java. Overall, these results are in line with everything else we've seen. In summary, Rust is getting quite popular, has special safety guarantees, programs which naturally perform well, and it's hard to learn, but not hard for an existing C++ or systems programmer. If you're now more interested in Rust, then in the next video, I want to show you a very simple example of how Rust enforces safety.